All right. Good evening, everybody. We are back with another Finn's Forecast show. We're going to go through the defensive grades this year. We're going to go through, game balls and jockstraps, the grades for position groups and everything. Same thing we did with the offense last week, except we're doing it for the defense this week. Going to be a little bit more of an optimistic show, I think. I think by and large, we are a little more positive about our defense and the offense. But look, we'll see. We'll see. Who knows? So we're going to get into all of that right after this. God, I love that intro, man. I freaking love that intro. As you can see tonight, we are without Josh. He's still recovering from COVID and pneumonia, and hopefully he'll be 100% or much closer to 100% for next week. But I am joined by Taylor and Anthony. Taylor, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing fantastic. I thought Josh was out there interviewing for the Dolphins special teams job.
I think I mean, we do need a new guy, and I think who I wouldn't mind seeing them bring back is Darren Rizzi.
Dude,
that'd be great, wouldn't it?
That's the dream. That is the dream right there.
Yeah, but we'll see how all that plays out. I mean, hey, maybe Josh is down there interviewing with him right now, and
we'd have the inside track.
Yeah,
we can get some interviews then.
Absolutely. And look, for what it's worth, Miami Dolphins. Josh, you could do a lot worse. You could do a lot worse than Josh as special teams coordinator.
There you go.
Anthony, how you doing tonight, man?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. It's been a busy time. I don't know, it's been a busy time in life, not so much with football. I think because significant others and everything, they know when the Dolphins are out, so then everything starts to pick up. So life is a little busier than it was just a few weeks ago. But I'm still here. I'm still keeping up as best I can.
I'm still here. How are you doing? I'm still here.
I'm still here. Right. Listen, I mean, if you're still here, then you're alive and you're successful. So that's where I'm at.
Low
bar.
Such a low bar.
I'm right there with you though, Anthony. Like my wife, she's like, okay, the Dolphins are out of it, so now you're not gonna be watching football on Sundays anymore, right? Well, actually, baby, it's the playoffs.
I'll be honest, man. I watched so little of this past weekend, and it was the best matchups too. And I was just like, I think I was just a little burnt out from football, and I just kind of went and got caught up doing other stuff. But I definitely
can't blame you there. Yeah. I can't blame you there.
I made sure to catch the highlights though. That's some good games.
Nice. Well, let's get right into it then, because we had 4 playoff games this weekend. We have our championship matchup set between the Chiefs and the Bills, and the Eagles and the Commanders, who pulled off a stunning upset in Detroit. Did you guys see that one coming, Taylor? Did you see that one coming? The Commanders beating Detroit in Detroit.
I don't even think Commanders fans saw this coming. I'm still surprised. Like Jaden Daniels is in the NFC title game. He's a rookie.
Yep.
Like that doesn't. I know it's happened before, but it doesn't usually happen. Like rookies don't have this kind of success. So
yeah,
I was very surprised by that.
Yeah, I was too. And then they're facing a division foe in Philadelphia, and that's that. I think their Cinderella run might come to an end because this Eagles team looks pretty darn good. As you guys know, I live in the Philadelphia area, and I was, watching the game amongst Eagles fans at a bar as, that game was going on. A lot of fun to watch it with Eagles fans, but also can't say I was cheering for the Eagles.
That's the one game, though, the Commanders-Lions that I did watch start to finish. I really rooting for the Lions. I really want to see Dan Campbell. I think a lot of Dolphins fans want to see Dan Campbell succeed. Really bummed. I mean, they lost by 14. It's not like it was close. Like, the Commanders really handed it to them.
Yeah, and I kept on expecting the Lions to, kind of get back into it and start, I thought the Lions were going to pull it out in the end, and Commanders just kept on coming. They just kept on trucking.
So the Commanders did split with the Eagles in the regular season, so it's not like there's precedence there.
Yeah, but that's what made it so surprising. I mean, Jaden Daniels and that offense and the defense too, they just outlines the Lions.
Yep.
No other way to put it.
Yeah. So look, credit to them. Credit to them. And in the AFC, we have a pretty familiar matchup. Yeah. We have the Chiefs and the Bills. You know, I know we've talked about the Bills on this show, and I've made my feelings about the Bills known. I don't want them to win. Even if that means that the Chiefs win again, I just don't want the Bills to win. But this is going to be a fun matchup. It's going to be a fun game to watch, regardless of who you're cheering for. What are your thoughts on that one, Anthony?
I got to be honest, man. I hate the Bills as much as the next Dolphins fan, but I really hope they hand it to the Chiefs. I'm so sick of the Chiefs. I'm so sick of Patrick Mahomes. Like, I used to love Patrick Mahomes. I really did. And he came out of Texas Tech. He was underrated. I really thought that he was just fun and everybody hated him. And I was like, no, this guy's fun. Yeah, he's got a weird voice, but like he's doing trick shots and stuff out there. But now,
weird voice.
But now, like, he's just so full of himself. Every time he gets up, he's like Brady. He expects the call, right? He's looking at the ref. Give me the call, ref. And he gets it every time. I can't stand that crap, man. Play the game. Don't play the refs.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, look, all the criticisms against Mahomes are absolutely valid, but man, I'll pray for the sweet embrace of death before I cheer for the Bills, man.
Maybe Jaden Daniels destroys the Bills in the Super Bowl. That'd be great for us.
Yeah. I mean, silver linings. Still 2 more chances. Taylor, how you feeling about this game?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Anthony. I can't see the Chiefs get a three-peat. We saw the Patriots in that dynasty.
Yeah.
And it's just history repeating itself for me, and I absolutely hate it.
Also, this is a lie right here. I don't believe this for a second. For a second.
Now, see, this is Mike we're talking about. I actually do believe that about Mike. Mike doesn't have a bone in his body that hates anything. He's a nice guy like that. I'm not nearly as nice. I'm not nearly as nice. I hate the Bills with every fiber of every being. That being said, I did predict the Bills to win the Super Bowl a few weeks back on this very show. Bills over Eagles was my prediction.
I love it.
What say? Hedge on my bets.
Hedge the bets. I love it. I do the same thing.
Look, I call him like I see him. It doesn't mean that I like what I'm seeing.
This is true right here though. Like, I don't hate anything, but there are certainly annoyances, and when division rivals are really good for so long, that's a giant annoyance.
Yeah.
And it's 2 of them in a row. Man.
Yeah, and that's true, Josh. Like, just because I hate the Bills shouldn't suggest that I don't respect the hell out of them. Josh Allen in particular. Josh Allen is unbelievable. And he's taken his game to a whole new level this season, which is why I see the Bills beating the Chiefs on Sunday. In other NFL news, we have Ben Johnson being hired by the Chicago Bears, and we have Aaron Glenn being hired by the New York Football Jets. So Lions losing both their coordinators. Dan Campbell's losing both of his coordinators. Not great for Detroit. I'm sure they'll find guys to replace them. But what do you think about these 2 hires, specifically Aaron Glenn? Taylor, what do you think?
I'm devastated.
Okay.
I was a fan of Bob Saleh when he got hired by the Jets. I don't think he was the problem with the Jets. I really don't. I think they were a dumpster fire situation going on for a plethora of reasons. So when they hired him, I was devastated because I was like, oh, what a fantastic coach. But the Jets, sometimes just be the Jets. And I got to hope that that's what happens this time, because Aaron Glenn took a Detroit Lions team that was just destroyed by injuries, and he kept them running all the way to the divisional round. And pretty much at the end of the day, the glue just came undone.
Yeah, there's only so many injuries that a team can sustain, and I think we saw that with Detroit. I think Aaron Glenn did a spectacular job with what he was given this year, which was a team full of promise, but a team full of injuries. I'm pretty sure they had more guys on IR than any other team in the NFL.
I mean,
Just a damn shame.
They lost one of the greatest defensive ends we've seen in recent memory, and
Yep.
they still were just great. So
Yeah,
that's
they
crazy.
still kept trucking right along, which is a credit to, again, which is a credit to Aaron Glenn. It's a credit to Dan Campbell. It's a credit to the players in that locker room. They made it to the divisional round. I understand they had higher aspirations, but they should be proud of what they accomplished. And Ben Johnson going from Dolphins wide receiver coach to a head coach, yeah, absolutely. And good for him. Good for him. I think he's going to be a good hire for Chicago. Do you think he can kind of turn Caleb Williams around, Anthony?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think Caleb Williams was as bad as everybody thinks he was. It's just listen, we live in such a what have you done for me lately world right now. Not just the NFL's always been like that, but the world is now like that. And we're stuck in this world of hey, CJ Stroud, he did it really well his rookie year. And then, oh, here comes Jaden Daniels. He does it really well his rookie year. I don't think Caleb was that bad. I mean, he had a lot around him and he didn't do a lot with it, but man, Eberflus just wasn't the coach. And if you watch the Hard Knocks, it was the AFC North Hard Knocks or whatever, that guy didn't really demand or take control of a room. He didn't walk in and you didn't feel that leadership presence you see with Dan Campbell. Everybody's at attention as soon as Campbell enters a room.
Yeah.
With Eberflus, it just wasn't there. There wasn't any inspiration. You had a coach who was, let's be honest, they all pretty much knew he was gone. That's a tough position for a rookie to come in, and what most first overall rookies come into, because they're always for a bad team, and for some reason, ownership thinks that they should give a coach that they don't really like one more chance with the first overall pick. That what could go wrong, and then ends up derailing the guy, and that's unfortunate for Caleb Williams. I had no real opinion of him before he came into the league, but I was rooting for him. I like his personality. I hope he can turn it around. But we've seen it time and time again. It's pretty difficult if you don't get a good start. To get a turnaround. I mean, Bryce Young is the one I can think of right now. It's the most recent one.
Well, and you could also point to Peyton Manning, who set the record for most interceptions in the season by a rookie.
He did.
And he turned it around into a Hall of Fame career. So it has been done. Drew Brees is being another one. It has been done before. So,
but neither of those guys are recent, right?
That's true. That's true.
We're looking at recent guys.
Josh Allen. Honest, I know this is a Dolphins podcast. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Tua, as well.
Yeah.
Two guys who have had early failures, turned it around various ways.
I do want to mention, though, because I feel like Josh would have mentioned this if he were on the show, because he brought it up in our text chain, is that how cool is it? Joe Philbin's staff, pretty good. It has two head coaches now, because Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson were both on Joe Philbin's staff back in the day, and now they're both head coaches in the NFL. That's pretty wild how history ends up looking better than it was. I mean, none of us really wish to have the Joe Philbin era back, but it turns out he put together a pretty decent staff.
Yeah, and that's a credit to him. Taylor, what are your thoughts on Ben Johnson in Chicago? Can he turn Caleb Williams around?
I am disappointed that we do have a wide receiver coach opening. I'm surprised he didn't want to come back down to Miami and get the job, but I think he can. The thing is with Caleb Williams is he has these elite traits to be a franchise quarterback, and it just is what it is. Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, both went off this year. End of the season, Michael Penix Jr. went off. Well, not to the extent of Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, but still, I think he showed more than Caleb Williams. But there's still those moments with Williams where you see flash of what he can be. So it's all about, to me, can Ben Johnson assemble that staff? Can he develop Caleb Williams into less of what he was at USC and more like what Aaron Rodgers was with Green Bay, which is what I would kind of compare him to in a way. That's what he needs to be, less so about let me run around trying to make a play. No, just get the ball out, man.
Yeah.
By the way, welcome to the show, Irving.
Yeah, thank you for joining us, Irving. We really appreciate it. I love that picture there. Yeah, it's a pretty great
Tyreek
picture.
and Waddle. There we go.
That's pretty cool. All right, so we're going to get into the defensive season review. We're going to go through position grades. We're going to go through game balls and jock straps and all that stuff. But first, let's just talk about the defense in general, because I know that this is a unit I think we all came away a little higher on than we did the offense. Like the offense was we said some negative things about the offense last week. All of them were deserved. They were all deserved. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have said them, but going into this defensive show, what are your initial thoughts on the defense? Taylor, I'll start with you on this one then.
So last week I had like a bird's eye view of the team year over year. I kind of did something similar for the defense here. And I got to tell you, the bird's eye view with Anthony Weaver's defense is he has the best defense we've had in the last 3 years. And I don't think it's close. And I actually think he's probably had the least to work with compared to his previous two regimes, which was Vic Fangio and Josh Boyer in 2022.
Yeah.
We had the 10th most point. We were ranked 10th in points allowed, 4th in yards allowed, 9th in pass yards allowed, 9th in rush yards allowed. And the big problem, honestly, is takeaways. We're ranked number 27 in the league.
Yeah.
If you can say anything about the Fangio defense, which I think was highly overrated for the Dolphins, for the Eagles, it's working fantastic. They're in the NFC title game. But for his time in Miami, it was pretty lackluster. But 27 takeaways in 2023, which was tied for 8th. So that's something that does have to be improved with Weaver. But other than that, I think this is a very promising group with a very promising coach that I hope doesn't get a head coaching job this year, and he gets to stay with us one more year.
That's a good point, Taylor. He's gotten a lot of interviews, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's gotten some interviews. It's got me a little worried because, don't get me wrong, he's deserving of the head coaching job, but please stick around one more year.
Yeah, we do want him for one more year, I think. Anthony, what are your initial thoughts on this defense?
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that I thought Weaver was for sure just going to be like a Rooney Rule interview for a while, but now that he's getting second and third interviews, it just shows to me that he's a leader of men, and that's kind of what I saw looking back at this season as a whole on defenses. The team played hard for him. They never stopped playing hard for him. He really got the most out of the defense, and all in all, I thought he was really good in terms of personnel decisions too. And I don't know if MMD gives the defensive coordinator that power, but I believe he does because he doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. He can barely handle the offense. This is a defensive show, though. Listen, we saw Weaver quick to make moves outside of benching Jordan Poyer, which we were all hoping for the entire season and never saw, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But they got rid of David Long when he just wasn't cutting it. Got rid of Marcus May. I still don't know what the heck Marcus May did, but clearly something bad. Yeah. And the greatest thing of all, he deserves a shrine just for this. He rarely put Duke Riley in on defense. Atta boy, Weaver. Atta boy. I mean, I was so sick and tired of seeing Duke Riley on defense, so we didn't have to see it this year. And that, to me, is an A+ just for that.
Build the statue.
Yeah. Taylor did mention a lot of things that I thought were, the turnover thing definitely stood out to me as well. Really bad. Very few interceptions. I think I jokingly said one day that we had fewer interceptions than that kid on the Lions. We have one more as a team than he had on the season. We had 10 and he had 9, which is crazy.
Wow.
And I think the other thing I saw is that we kind of, as a team entirely, not just the offense, our defense folded against the tougher competition. We couldn't hold up against the Bills of the league and the who else did we play that was tough? Any other team that we played that was tough? Arizona, Seattle destroyed us 24-3. And then the last week against the Jets, the defense didn't play well. They were put in bad positions early on in the season because of bad quarterback play. I tried to overlook that as much as I could because they were playing their butts off. They were just continuously put in short yardage situations. But I think overall the defense it looks a lot better than it probably was because our offense was so annoying. But I think they were pretty solid under Weaver. Weaver I liked having Weaver, and I hope he stays.
Yeah, I think most Dolphins fans are probably of a similar mindset. We want Weaver to stay. I think Weaver. I think there were times. Now, for me personally, I think there were times where Weaver didn't have a great feel for the game, didn't have a great feel for the room. I feel like there were times where he was aggressive when he should have been more passive, and he was more passive when he should have been more aggressive. And it's in those times where you see turnovers forced. You know, it's during those times where you see, quarterbacks panic, throw a bad ball, or whatever that may be. So I think, again, this is just a young coordinator who's just trying to find his way. I think he'll get better at that as things go along and as the personnel improves, because like you said, Taylor, he didn't have a whole lot to work with. Along the defensive line, we lost Christian Wilkins, replaced him with Calais Campbell, who was great for us this year, but he's not Christian Wilkins, and he's not prime Christian Wilkins, not at 38 years old. Zach Sealer had a great year. I mean, I just think at times this defense was a little bereft of talent, and it showed, manifested itself on the field at times.
Yeah, we didn't have a ton of depth, and we faced some injuries, like every team, but we faced a lot of injuries, and we didn't have anything to fill in for those injuries. I mean,
true.
Like the starters we had were barely good, and then we're trying to slide in these guys behind them. It was rough.
Yeah. So yeah, Irvin. Tua had a very good season despite the injuries of the Texans at the first Bills game. Huge honor. Yes, absolutely. Irving, we're now. I appreciate you commenting. We did the offense last week, so and if you want to check that show out, we covered everything offense last week. This week we're covering everything defense. So give us your thoughts on the defense, if you wouldn't mind.
Irving's on the right track of how we thought about the offense, though.
Yeah, he is.
That was kind of about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's to say that you probably won't hear much about the offense on this show.
Yeah. No, we went through. We went through the offense with a fine-tooth comb last week. Yeah. This week we're doing the same with the defense. And with that being said, so I'm going to turn it over to Taylor, and we're going to get into the next segment here.
All right. Let's get into some position grades, guys. So the offense last week, we spent a lot of time on position grades, and I don't think we're going to have to spend nearly as much time on this group here. Let's start with the D-line here, and let's start with Anthony. Anthony, what grade did you give our defensive line?
I'll be honest, I had to just quickly throw in the grades because I wrote down all of my thoughts and didn't even put a grade.
That's fantastic. Who needs planning?
When I was judging the line, I was judging Sealer, Campbell, Deshaun Hand, and Benito Jones. Those are the four guys I really considered to be part of my grade. And I got to say, 3 out of 4 were really good. I thought, Sealer and Campbell carried the defense by far. And then Deshaun Hand, early on in the season especially, I think he started to fade towards the end. But he played particularly well, I thought. And Benito Jones was pretty invisible. I didn't really notice him out there too much. So I gave them a solid B, I would say. I have a hard time giving anybody on an 8 and 9 team an A. So spoiler alert. But I did give this unit a solid B because I think Sealer and Campbell may have been one of the best duos in the league.
Yeah, just to talk about the D-line a little bit here. We also had Neil Farrell Jr., Brandon Peely, and Matt Dickerson. And to me, they just didn't have enough snaps. I agree with Anthony to really justify it. So those were the main 4 to judge. Heath, what grade did you give the D-line?
I'm lockstep with Anthony on this one here. I gave him a B. Deshaun Hand being the third guy, the third defensive lineman, and Zach Sealer had a great season for us. I still don't know how he broke his orbital bone mid-season. But when he was out, we missed him. We missed him big time. So Zach Sealer was great. I'd like to get him apology to Calais Campbell, but a younger more spry running mate who's going to be on the field for more snaps with him. But Calais Campbell played his part this year. He did a really nice job. I thought he faded a little bit towards the end of the season, as 38-year-olds tend to do. I'm not knocking him. I just turned 38 yesterday, so I'm not knocking 38-year-olds. But 38-year-olds, we get tired. We get tired towards the end of the day, towards the end of things, and so I think Calais Campbell his play kind of trailed off towards the end of the season, and I thought Deshaun Hand played a nice role. Played a nice rotational role for the Dolphins. So,
happy birthday, by the way. Did
oh
not
yeah,
know
thank
yesterday
you.
was
Thank
your
you.
birthday.
Yeah. The big 3-8. Now Calais Campbell and I,
Yeah.
Now, maybe the Dolphins look for me to play defensive tackle for
They
them
could.
next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen,
we're gonna have Josh as special teams coordinator, and we're gonna have Keith here in the D line rotation. Like, come on, undefeated season.
We are making plans for next season.
Keep
man.
your resume updated, buddy. They're coming. They're coming.
Yeah.
They're coming.
But no,
No.
I gave him a B. I gave him a B right along with Anthony. I thought they had a solid year, but kind of, they were solid if unspectacular.
Yeah, I was a little higher on him. I gave him an A grade, and it is very much helped by Zach Sealer and Calais Campbell, who I individually gave A+ grades because they were. I seriously, for the expectations that were on this D line, for just this hodgepodge, let's just throw people in there. We'll see what happens. For this to be as good of a group as it is just a miracle. Sealer had 11 sacks, and he had a 78.9 defensive grade over on PFF, which was 11th among the interior D line. Calais Campbell had 5 sacks. He had an 82.3 defensive grade on PFF, which was 6th among the interior D line. And in terms of the backups, Benito Jones, Deshaun Hand, I thought they both did fine as backups. I don't think they were particularly insanely great, but they also weren't insanely bad. Josh, who is in our chat here today, you could chat with Josh and get his thoughts more in detail, but he also shared his grades. He gave a B+ to the interior defensive line. But we are moving on, guys, to the edge room, the edge rushers. Anthony, let's start with you again. What grade did you give the edge rushers?
Well, I'm sticking with B's, but not by itself. I gave them a B- on this one. I think that, Chop Robinson was great as a rookie. Emmanuel Ava quietly had 5 sacks. I didn't even realize he had that many. It's crazy. And then the rest of the unit was, well, I shouldn't say the rest of the unit. Quentin Bell, I really liked. I wanted to get to him because we talked about Quentin Bell in the preseason shows. And Taylor, I know you weren't here for those, but spoiler alert, we talked about Quentin Bell in the preseason shows as a guy we potentially like to play more snaps than we expected to this year. It took a really long time. He didn't really get involved in the defense till towards the end of the year. But when he did, you kind of felt his presence. I thought he didn't really do much with the sacks, but you felt his presence from setting the edge against the run. I thought he made quite a few impact plays. And overall, from those 3, I gave them a B- because of that. What I would like to see more of is growth from Mo Kamara. We didn't get to see Mo Kamara at all. I think he was out there at one point, but we were signing guys to play over him. We signed Tyus Bowser, and he immediately started the next game. And Mo Kamara was relegated to practice squad or bench or wherever the heck he lived this season. So I was pretty pumped as a whole for Chop and for Quentin Bell. 2 young guys added to the mix that could potentially grow within the system. Agba, I don't know that he'll be back, but it was good to see some production out of him. And then I just want to see more from Mo. Give me more Mo.
Yeah, Mo Kamara, I have here that he didn't have enough snaps, so I don't think it was anything noteworthy. That was disappointing to get out of the way. He just did not see the field, and especially coming out of the draft. That was one of the things that people were talking about. Hey, Chop's the project, but Mo is ready to be put out there, and somehow it's the opposite. Keith, what grade did you give the edge rushers?
Well, look, if you'd have come to me before the season and you said to me, Bradley Chubb isn't going to play it down for the Dolphins this year, Jalen Phillips is only going to play 4 games before tearing his ACL. Mo Kamara isn't going to get much play. Shaq Barrett is going to retire inexplicably before the season. And basically, you're going to be stuck with guys like Quentin Bell and Emmanuel Ogbah and Chop Robinson as your edge rushers. I would have told you that the Dolphins defense is going to be horrible. They're never going to get any sacks. They're never going to get any pressures. And they're going to get gashed for a ton of yards. So with that being said, I gave the Dolphins edge rushers a B+, largely off the back of Chop Robinson, who was just, at times, he was a man amongst boys. And again, this was a draft pick that I was not high on when it was made. I was not a happy camper when they drafted Chop Robinson. So again, if you'd have told me that Chop Robinson was going to be the Dolphins' top edge rusher, I would have been incredulous. I would have been pissed. I would have been beside myself, and I would have been wrong. They actually fared pretty well in spite of all the obstacles that were put in front of them this season. I think that needs to be taken into account here. So B+.
Yeah. Just real quick, Josh said in the chat here that Liam Eichenberg hurt Zach Saylor. So that is how he broke his orbital bone. So,
yet another reason to hate Liam Eichenberg. He got my jockstrap last week, and
he'll get another one.
Yeah, he gets
an
another
honorary one just for that. Yeah, a lot of what you said, Keith, a lot of what you said, Anthony, I echo the same sentiment. Chop was a revelation this season. And I didn't hate the pick. I just didn't quite understand it considering the holes on the team. But then you look at how the season unfolded. Thank God we had Chop Robinson, because this defense and this edge rush room would have been, I don't even want to imagine what it would have been. Awful. I ended up giving this room a B-. Chop Robinson specifically getting an A- for he had 7 sacks, which isn't particularly like light the world on fire, but considering his pressure rate, considering what he did to get to the quarterback and make a impact on the quarterback, and also considering this is a bad thing, but I kind of consider it promising, he had a huge missed tackle rate at the position. So he has a lot to improve on, but that is easily fixable.
Yeah,
next season.
We talked about that a lot.
Imagine?
We talked about early in the season, like all you need to do is stick an arm out, Chop. It's not that hard.
Yeah,
He's
I think
running
it was a
33%
missed tackle rate. Like that is insane. But that tells you, like, if he's doing that good now, imagine how he's going to do with a few years to actually develop. So yeah, I gave it a B-. I thought Ogbah played pretty well overall, especially considering he was asked to come in late. Or not late, but he was asked to come in and start when we were supposed to have Phillips.
Pretty late, if I remember, Taylor. I think they asked him to come in after Shaq Barrett retired.
Yeah, so what was late into the preseason process, I think?
Yeah.
And the backups, I think, did fine as well. Josh ended up giving this a C+ grade. Now, moving on to linebackers, Anthony, go ahead, man.
Well, I just want to say one more point about the edge rushers. It's a shame that we didn't get to see Jalen Phillips, Chubb, and Chop on the field at the same time. It's unlikely that we will. I know that's a future episode where we'll talk about roster construction, but was really looking forward to that potential.
Before we move on, Taylor, let's go to the chat real quick and see what Irving has to say. On defense, we did good despite some of the injuries. Edge, and we referenced that just now. Poor play at safety. We are certainly getting to that. Dolphins finish in the top 10 in the league in most major defensive categories, and that's what you were saying earlier, Taylor. It's great. It in spite of the talent level, in spite of what they were given, they did some nice things. 9th in passing yards per game. Yep. They were also top 10 defending teams on third down. They didn't create enough sacks, and I think that's with the edge injuries. Josh agrees.
A lot of Chop love in the chat.
Yeah,
I love the Chop love.
As there should be.
It's good to have a first round pick.
Should be.
I think that's really the theme of the defense. I think that's a lot of what we've said. I think that's what Josh has said in the chat. I think that's what Irving's saying. A lot of people in chat as well, just going like, hey, you know what? There's a lot to love about this defense. From Chop to Weaver to the D-line with Sealer. Because Sealer, while he's not 24 years old, still hasn't even hit 30 yet. And he's on an amazing deal. considering what it could be. So there's a lot to look forward to with this defense. Unfortunately, we kind of hinted at it. Once we get to that secondary, our conversation will shift a little bit, but we're not there yet. We're still at linebacker.
Yes.
Anything else before we get into the linebackers?
No, let's go. Let's get into it, Taylor.
All right, Anthony, come on, man.
Let's do it. All right, so the linebacker position was completely overhauled this year, which is something that we as Dolphins fans have wanted for a very long time.
Oh, yeah.
The one guy we brought back was David Long Jr. He ended up getting cut just a few weeks into the season because, well, let's not sugarcoat it. He was awful. He just wasn't a very good fit in the system. He couldn't plug the hole where he needed to, and that was his job. So there was reports that there was some disgruntled talk in the locker room, and then a couple days later, David Long Jr. was let go. So I think you could probably put one and one together and see that makes two. Anthony Walker Jr., Jordan Brooks, they were our starters in the middle for most of the season. I got to say, they did a really, really good job. Jordan Brooks especially, 143 tackles. Come at me, boy. I know Keith is going to talk more about him later, so I'm not going to stat vomit on Jordan Brooks just yet. I got to say, though, guys, because I've loved this guy forever. I've played with him in Madden for a few seasons now. When Greer went out and snatched him up immediately when he was cut from Seattle, Tyrell Dodson, what a great addition. I just loved everything about it. I'm at a loss of words as to what to even say about him. He comes in, I think his first game he made an interception, and he only played
interceptions. It makes no sense.
He only played a few snaps. He wasn't heavily involved in that first game. I thought the linebacker crew, that Anthony Walker and Jordan Brooks and Tyrell Dodson especially, played amazingly well. And then we had Duke Riley, who mostly played special teams. David Long didn't end up working out, and we cut him. And then we have this boy Channing Tindall on the roster still. I don't know where he is. He was the first pick of our draft in 2 years ago. I think we had a third-round pick. We didn't have a first or a second because of the Tyreek deal. And Channing still hasn't made any sort of impact on his team. He hasn't even found the field, let alone make an impact. So I based my grade mostly on Walker, Brooks, and Dodson. I gave them a B. I really wanted to give them a B+, but I do think they left some plays out on the field this year. There was times where they looked a little lost, and once they got lost, it was like they had a hard time finding their way home. So I would want to see them clean that up. Maybe it's because it's their first time in the system and they're just getting used to things. I don't know. Maybe the safeties weren't doing their job, which we'll talk about more of. But yeah, so linebacker group, what an overhaul. I would say this is an overwhelming success in terms of completely turning over a position group and having it work that well. I thought was great. I gave them a B.
Yeah, what's funny is you mentioned Channing Tindall, and I'm looking at my roster. I forgot Channing Tindall. I think that tells you all you need to know about his season and how it went.
He played mostly special teams, Taylor. Yeah, that's kind of what he's going to be at this point.
I don't even know what number he is.
That's even who makes the roster. I think he was on the bubble.
He was.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But Keith, what grade did you give the linebacking core?
I gave them a B. I'm kind of with Anthony on this one. I can't give them an A because I don't think they were an A to me is, this was a standout group. This was a group that, went above and beyond and did great things. And they did some very nice things. They missed a lot of tackles. They missed some games. I'm looking at Anthony Walker on this one. David Long was bad in the beginning of the season. Dotson came in and did some nice things. But I still don't think he was as good as Anthony Walker. I think Anthony Walker was a much better player. Jordan Brooks is the guy that gets his team up to a B, though, because Jordan Brooks really solidified that linebacker position. He kind of took over where David Long and before him Jerome Baker, guys like that, kind of failed. Jerome Baker was the epitome of mediocrity throughout his time in Miami. And Jordan Brooks was so much better than that. He was kind of all over the field at times. As Anthony said, 143 tackles, 86 solo tackles, 3 sacks. He was a revelation for this defense. And in my opinion, well, we'll get into it with Game Balls and Jockstraps. But spoiler alert, I think he's the Dolphins' defensive MVP. So I give the linebackers as a whole B.
Yeah, I gave the linebacker room a B as well. Jordan Brooks had over 1,000 snaps. I think he was one of 2 Dolphins defenders to have over 1,000 snaps, alongside Jalen Ramsey, who we will talk about. He kind of carries his own room, but Jordan Brooks was absolutely sensational this season. Anthony, you talk about Tyrell Dodson. Like, he was an interception machine somehow, some way. It still makes no sense to me, but he made a difference when he was on the field. He was signed in early November, along with the release of David Long, who was cut in early November. Who, yeah, man, that was a weird thing because last year he was so good for this team, and somehow to see him fall to, he just can't be on the field. He's a liability. I don't understand what really happened there. Anthony Walker, I also thought played decently well as a backup linebacker, and Duke Riley didn't have enough snaps for me to really give him a grade on defense, which I think is a great thing. Anthony Weaver is again build a statue right now.
By the way, David Long, he landed with 2 other teams and got cut by 2 other teams as well.
Yeah,
I don't know if
including the Lions, right?
He ended up with the Lions, and then they cut him, and then ends up with the Titans, and I believe they ended up releasing him at the end of the year. So, what a fall from grace there.
Yeah,
he was
it's actually weird how fast he fell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Josh ended up giving the linebacker room a B plus. I did that twice. Let's go on to the cornerback room. Anthony, this is a tough one.
Yeah, this is where it starts to kind of go a little downhill for me. I think you could split the defense in half and tell me one half was good and one half was bad. And this is where the bad part starts for me, at least. I gave the cornerback room a C-. I thought that the addition of Kendall Fuller was really nice when he played. But again, faced injuries this year. I don't remember how many games he actually played. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Probably not. But, we've talked about availability all the time. We're kind of sick and tired of the team having all of these injuries. I don't know if that has something to do with our medical staff or whatever it is, but I would like to see the guys we pick up actually play. That would be nice. Okay. Jalen Ramsey, if you've watched this show for any amount of time, you know that I am not the biggest Jalen Ramsey fan. Sorry. I don't think he's worth the money, and certainly played that way again this year, but he was our best cornerback. I don't know what that says, really. He started the season off by getting absolutely roasted by Brian Thomas Jr. Welcome to the NFL. And a little later on in the season, I can't remember who it was, but it was another rookie wide receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr., just remembered, also burnt him. So Ramsey, the best corner we have, and supposed to be this all-star. We paid him like an all-star. Can't cover rookie wide receivers. That's what I came to understand out of this season. That's obviously simplifying it for simplicity's sake. But then when you look at the rest of the defensive backs, guys, it really so even if I wanted to give those guys a C+, because Fuller and Ramsey did play fairly well, the rest of the unit really left a lot to be desired. Kader Kohu did make a step up from last year, but still not matching his rookie season that we all fell in love with him. Continues to be just a middling kind of player, even back in his rightful position as the nickel corner. You still just saw way too lackadaisical of coverage from him at times, inability to tackle, which was a problem throughout the entire unit, and really expected to see more out of Kader there. But undrafted free agents, am I right?
Yeah.
Speaking of, Storm Duck was an undrafted free agent. As Josh mentioned in the chat, he does have the best name in football, and I'm so pumped he made the team. We were all pumped he made the team. But man, to say he had an up and down season would be an understatement. At times, he looked like a scrappy diamond in the rough that Chris Greer pulled out of his butt out of the undrafted free agency. And then at other times, he looked like an undrafted free agent. Just got owned on the field. Penalties galore because he's just holding on for dear life. So I would love to see more development out of Storm Duck. I really would. But man, if we are sitting here next year with him as like our corner 2, I'm scared. I'm really scared. I was
going to say, you must have been terrified at the end of this season. That's all I'm saying.
It was tough. I don't know what we're going to do at corner, but it needs some work. To round off the guys I counted towards this, Siren Neal was terrible. He mostly played special teams, thankfully. Ethan Bonner was somebody we expected to see something out of this year, and we just didn't. And then I don't even know a good enough word to describe Cam Smith. Houdini, because you can never find him. I have no idea. Cam Smith, again, another guy who just hasn't done anything since being drafted by Miami fairly early in the draft. So I went, not to bury the lead, with a C- for this unit. C- for the cornerback unit, because I think there was just so much to be desired from this unit.
Keith, what grade do you give the corners?
I'm going a little rosier than Anthony, but not by much. I want the C+ for the cornerbacks. So look, I understand the criticism with Jalen Ramsey. You know, he's being overpaid. He's not the cornerback that he once was, so he's making too much money. He's making more money than his play suggests he should. But he was still the best cornerback on the team, and he's still, for decent stretches of the season, played like a top 5 corner, in my opinion. Now there were times where he got roasted against Marvin Harrison Jr., absolutely, against Brian Thomas in week 1 against the Jaguars. There were times he got picked on, but there were other times where he would erase the other team's top wide receiver. Just completely wipe that dude off the map, and you wouldn't hear about him all game. And games like that, you don't hear his name called all that often. There's a reason for that, because the quarterback isn't looking in his direction. He came on corner blitzes, and he made some nice plays on the corner blitz at times. So again, I think Jalen Ramsey, his best days in football are likely behind him, but I do still think he had a decent season for the Dolphins. Kendall Fuller, he played 11 games for the Dolphins this season. He didn't finish 2 of those 11 games. So let's say he played 9 games for the Dolphins. He was solid for those 9 games. He was solid. He was exactly as advertised. He was exactly what we thought we were getting when we signed him. So credit to him. Concussions, injuries, you can't really account for those kinds of things. But when he was in there, he was a good number 2 cornerback for us, and that's all we can really ask for. Cater Co, who I agree with you, Anthony, he didn't quite live up to his play as a rookie, but he wasn't nearly as bad as last year. He's kind of gotten into this mean area where I think you're just going to get decent play out of him, and I think that's what you can expect from him moving forward, which isn't a knock on him. He's an undrafted free agent, as we all know. And, sometimes the best you can hope for out of an undrafted free agent is getting average, middling type of play from him.
I'm having him and Duck as like the 4th and 5th corners, and maybe upgrading at the slot at the nickel corner next year.
Oh, I agree. I think that's and that brings me to Storm Duck, who, at times looked overmatched. And again, he's a rookie undrafted free agent. At times he's going to be overmatched. He played at Louisville. Louisville is known for basketball, not football. So, and then, Cam Smith, I'll get into Cam Smith a little bit later on, but Cam Smith was bad, and he was injured, and when he wasn't injured, he was bad. And that's a wasted draft pick by Chris Greer. We've gotten into draft picks by Chris Greer. That's a pick that I'm sure Chris Greer would like to have back. So all in all, I gave him a C+ because I don't think that they were nearly as bad as they've been made out to be. And I think a lot of that rests on Jalen Ramsey because of how much he's getting paid.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of this is on, not like a lot of the blame, but I think a lot of this room is on Jalen Ramsey because I think he carries a lot of it. I'm a little harsher than both of you guys on Kendall Fuller. I know he was out for a few games with various injuries, and that always sucks, but I expected him to have a little more of a presence. There was a lot of times where he was just getting, I don't want to say bullied out there, but it was just a thing where, oh man, who let up the catch? Oh, it's Kendall Fuller. Oh, who let the catch? It's Storm Duck, which we'll get to Storm Duck here in a bit. But Kendall Fuller, I was kind of a little disappointed with. Hopefully, his second year in Miami, he can kind of get past the injuries, come back strong, and let's see what he could really do. Jalen Ramsey, I know I said like he carried the room. I just want to add on here. Like I said earlier, he had over 1,000 snaps, and I think he added for a team that we talked about for the last few weeks, and it's a theme that's going to probably echo throughout this entire offseason. Get physical players, get physicality on this team. Jalen Ramsey was physical. Like he made plays. Talk about the Jacksonville game. There was a huge reversal. Like I think it was like a reverse play. It was like on a third down. And you know what? The whole defense did not give up on it. Jalen Ramsey in particular ended up making a massive stop so we can come back and win that game. And that's something that he did throughout the season. So I'll give him credit. Even though I'm with you, Anthony, I have a lot of issues with Jalen Ramsey as a player at this point in his career and how much we paid him in particular. But he still is a pretty good starting corner in the league. Kader Kohu, I'm kind of over the Kohu experiment at this point, guys. His thing is setting the tone, making the tackles, and he's not really doing that anymore. So, I mean, what's the point of him being on the team? But I guess we could bring him back on a cheap deal. It could end up working out. Storm Duck, I thought he played fine for an undrafted rookie in his rookie year. Saron Neal played horrible. Not much I would like to say there. Cam Smith, Nick Needham, and Ethan Bonner did not have enough snaps for me to grade on. So yeah, I gave this room a C minus. Josh ended up giving this room a C plus. Now, let's get to the room that I'm pretty sure Josh wanted to be on here to talk about. The safety room. Oh, this is gonna be the harshest part of the entire episode.
Yeah.
Who wants? Anthony, do you want to go first?
Sure, it's pretty short and sweet for me. There's not really too much to say.
Yeah.
I gave this room an F. If I could give them lower, I would. Jordan Poyer has no right being on a football field anymore. It was consistently being picked on. He was consistently the reason that we gave up long third down conversions. Consistently the reason we gave up touchdowns. Just I know that we kept him on the field because he was the coach of the defense, but you can't convince me that Jordan Brooks couldn't have taken that job. Or maybe Javon Holland, the guy who's fighting for a big payday, who completely crapped the bed this year. Javon Holland is a guy we all love. We drafted him right after we got rid of Minkah Fitzpatrick. He had an amazing rookie season, and we all fell in love all over again with our safety. This year, he's playing with an opportunity to get paid big bucks next year, and Miami would have given it to him if he had any kind of good season, but he did not. It was so disappointing. This is a guy whose jersey I nearly purchased after his rookie season. I don't go out buying safety jerseys. Why the heck would you? They're safeties. But what a disappointment this year. Consistently out of position. I saw this guy get faked out by a tight end on more than one occasion. What the heck is that? These are the slowest guys on the offense, and they're sitting there juking him out of his pants. And Elijah Campbell, he was in and out, but didn't play enough for me to really add too much to it. I think at the beginning of the year, we were saying that he was the best safety we had because the other two were playing so poorly. To be honest, the whole safety room is gone after this year. None of them are under contract, and I cannot wait to see, hopefully, 4 new guys in that room, just like they did with the linebackers this year.
Keith, what grade do you give to safeties?
I gave him an F as well. There's no excuse for how they played this year. Jordan Poyer, not only was he missing tackles and taking wrong angles on tackles, he was getting stupid penalties. He cost us that Bills game with that stupid penalty, which he didn't have to commit at the end of that game. He got the Bills in the field goal range, got them a new lease on life. Man, he was bad. We joked about it all year, but it was almost like he was a sleeper cell for the Bills. He came in just to sabotage the Dolphins. Like that's what it felt like at times with Jordan Poyer.
That was the conspiracy theory.
So Jordan Poyer, don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out, because I'm done with you. And Javon Holland. Anthony, you said you almost purchased his jersey. I did purchase his
Oh.
jersey. I did purchase Javon Holland's jersey. Actually, no, I didn't. That's not true. My wife got that for me. My wife got me a Javon Holland jersey for Christmas 2 years ago. So, but I do have a Javon Holland jersey. I've worn it loud and proud. Not this season, though, because Javon Holland was bad. He was horrible. He played almost as bad as his running mate in Jordan Poyer. And this is a 24-year-old safety who's supposed to be entering the prime of his career in a contract year. He should have played out of his mind this season. He should have played out of his mind. And if his first 2 seasons was any indication, he would have. He looked like Rashad Jones reincarnated to me.
What a name.
Yeah. Loved Rashad Jones back in the day.
I haven't thought about that guy in a long time.
I think about him a lot because he was like one of my favorite players back in the day because he was all over the field, and that's what Javon Holland looked like to me. He looked like a Rashad Jones clone where he's all over the field, making plays, making tackles, getting interceptions. Javon Holland has been the invisible man all season, and it kind of feels like after he sprained both MCLs in his knees last season on the same play, no less. He hasn't been the same player since then. And I'm not saying he wasn't healthy this season. I don't know what was wrong with Javon Holland this season. But he's another one where you're 24 years old, supposed to be in your prime, you're in a contract year, and you play like that, don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out. See it. The whole room gets in that. Throw him in the trash.
Josh, Brandon Jones was my man crush, and we got rid of him. Josh says he'd take Brandon Jones over. I mean, I would have loved to have Brandon Jones back, but
absolutely. Absolutely.
I am flabbergasted by both of you guys giving this safety room an F. Granted, I'm giving this a D, but at the same time, I was surprised to hear you guys talk like I talked about the guards last week. So that was really awesome. And also, Keith, I seriously gotta appreciate the Rashad Jones shout out. Like,
Rashad Jones was the man.
You start talking about Carlos Dansby, and all that group.
Yeah.
Like, let's go. But no, we're not gonna get into that tangent. Talking about Javon Holland here. Yeah, man, it's a lot of what you guys said. I don't know what it is. That's what bothers me so much about it. Like, is it an injury thing? Is it a schematic thing? Because I can't imagine it's schematic. You think he would fit so well.
He's too athletic for it to be schematic.
That's what I'm saying. Like, especially in the Anthony Weaver, Baltimore Ravens kind of defense, you think he'd be perfect for that. So it's got to be something injury related, or I don't know, man. Especially what you were saying, Anthony, about it being a contract year. This was his time to prove I should be one of the highest paid safeties in the league. And instead, you're sitting there going like, I'm not sure he gets a big contract, period, from a team. Unless the team just goes like, oh, I didn't see what happened last season. I just know he's a 24-year-old safety with a bunch of promise. Jordan Poyer, there's nothing I could say about this guy. We got him 2 years too late, and he made many mistakes. He was available. I'll give him that. He was available to play. That's pretty much the only thing I could say.
So were we. We could have done just as well.
I would have taken better angles.
I would have taken half the pay.
There's not a whole lot to really say about this room because it's really just those two. Marcus May got released in late November. I think he went on to play for the Chargers.
He did. He made an interception in his first game for them.
Yeah. So he got in the playoffs. And Elijah Campbell, Patrick McMorris didn't play enough snaps. The only person I want back on this roster next year in the safety room is McMorris. Because I want to see what he's got.
It's a shame we didn't get a chance to see him. Yeah.
And Campbell, to be fair, I think Campbell's good on special teams.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate that. I'm far more done with Duke Riley than I am with Elijah Campbell.
I do want to mention, Taylor, that something Josh probably would have said. He did say it in the chat, and I think he is onto something there. That Holland potentially could have been played bad because he was trying to make up for the shortcomings of Poyer. We'll never know. We don't know the scheme well enough or where he's supposed to be and when. But I can tell you that if that is the reason that he just lost himself a bunch of money to try to make up for another player, that's never good.
It's like Bill Belichick's old adage: do your job, do your job.
Right.
Don't do somebody else's job, do your job. Javon Holland, Javon Holland may have been trying to do Jordan Poyer's job in addition to his own, but by trying to do both jobs, he was doing both jobs half-assedly. So do your job and let Jordan Poyer leave him out to dry, man, because he was going to be bad anyway.
Well, Josh would kill me if I didn't mention this. His grade was a D minus.
I'm surprised he didn't give
That's
so
I know.
shocking.
I can't believe he didn't give him an F.
That's why I was so shocked at you guys going F, because I sat here looking at Josh's grade and going like, oh man, he didn't trash on this enough.
What
But
the hell, Josh?
we got one last room to talk about. That's the special teams room, and I guess it's more like just the kickers, punter, how we did on special teams in general, kind of thing. I know this is a little more difficult than just the, going position by position. So Anthony, go off, man.
Yeah, I kind of clumped them all into the same. Obviously the special teams coordinator was a problem. He got cut after the season, and something we wanted years ago. Yeah. But listen, Jason Sanders was rock solid this year, and Bailey was much better than any of us expected him to be. There was no kick or punt return to speak of. We had no production out of those two units, and the coverage units were pretty good. I gave them a C overall. I thought overall that it's just an average unit. There's nothing special. There's nobody for me to scream from the rooftops for in this unit. So I figured, why not give him a C?
Yeah, not to go out of order here, but literally Anthony said everything I wanted to say. I gave it a C as well. Like, Jason Sanders to me is the only highlight besides what Malik Washington having that fantastic kick return against the Jets, and
that we didn't score on.
Yeah, and Malik Washington, he had that fumble as well, so kind of balances out. But Washington overall was a pretty fine kick returner. Everything else but the special teams unit was average at best, and at worst, like, we needed changes at this position. Heath, what grade did you give the special teams?
Yeah, I'll give him a C+. I mean, Jason Sanders is back to his old reliable self, which is a relief because, it sucks having your field goal kicker go up there and you're sweating bullets as to whether or not he can make a 35-yard field goal. So it's nice to have the old reliable Jason Sanders back. Jake Bailey, look, he wasn't good as a punter. He wasn't. He was just okay. We could probably do better. But if he's the reason why Jason Sanders has had this kind of resurgence in his reliability, then I'll keep Jake Bailey forever and just let him punt. I'll let him punt until his leg falls off, because I value Jason Sanders being as reliable as he was this season more than I value a great punter, if that makes sense. So I'm good with that. I do think they should have fired Danny Crossman. I think that was well deserved, long overdue, because their coverage unit has been bad for years now. Our return units haven't been great for a long time now. And this whole thing with Blake Ferguson, this whole mystery thing with Blake Ferguson, I don't think we'll ever get clarity. I don't think we'll ever get clarity on what happened there. And I don't dock them points for that, because there wasn't any botched snaps or anything like that. But it was just a weird season overall for the special teams. With Braxton Berrios going out and then Malik Washington taking over. I want to see the special teams win us a game. When was the last time you can say the special teams actively won us a football game?
I can't tell you when, but I can tell you who. It was Van Ginkel.
Who?
Somehow Van Ginkel won us a game on special teams. I can't tell you when it was, but
yeah, I remember that. It was a blocked punt, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that against the Bengals?
It might have been.
I remember us getting a really big special teams play against the Bengals that ended up winning the game for us.
We've gotten a safety against the Bengals in overtime that won the game for us one time.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking
Cam
of.
Wake.
I
remember that.
Cam Wake.
And Washington this year, I think you can give that. If we don't have that punt return, I'm not sure we end up.
That's true. That's true. But I want to see more stellar play out of the special teams and not just we're going through the units to get the ball back to the offense. We're going through the units just to get the ball through the uprights and moving on, or whatever. Danny Crossman should have been fired. Danny Crossman was fired. I'd like to see us move on to a guy like Darren Rizzi, who I think is a really good special teams coordinator, and see if we can squeeze more blood out of this stone.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Josh ended up giving the special teams unit a B+, so he was higher on it than us here.
Get it, Josh. There you go.
Be sure to leave a comment on your grades for the defense, for the defensive groups and the special teams, and give us a like on this video. Who is taking the game balls and jockstraps, guys?
I am, of course.
Anthony.
Yeah. So everybody's favorite segment is here. So grab a fresh drink because it's time for our game balls and jockstraps.
Game balls and jockstraps.
It's everyone's favorite segment. This is where we point out the MVPs of our season and the absolute losers of our season, guys that we hope never touch the football field again for the Miami Dolphins. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but a jockstrap is not something you really want to get because it's dirty, it's stinky, it's pink. I don't know what that's from, but listen, this is our Game Balls and Jockstraps segment. If you are new to this segment, this is where we give out game balls to the players, and this is a season long, so this will be the last one we do until next season. But we give out game balls to the players who perform the best, and we give out jockstraps to the players who performed the worst. So I'm going to start off with Keith down right below me there with his game ball. Keith, start us off hot, buddy.
Well, I mentioned him a lot during the linebacker segment. Jordan Brooks. Jordan Brooks came in and really solidified the linebacker position. He's the best linebacker I think the Dolphins have had since, dare I say, Zach Thomas. He was all over the field. He was making plays. He, after watching Jerome Baker just be a middling type of linebacker since he came in the league 6 seasons ago, I was ready to see a linebacker really be a transformative type of player, and that's what Jordan Brooks was. So for me, love to see him, and I hope he's with the Dolphins for years to come. I hope he stays healthy for years to come, because that has been his kind of Achilles heel, no pun intended, throughout this to this point in his career. So I'm hoping for more great things from Jordan Brooks. He gets my game ball.
Can't think of a more deserving game ball, honestly. I mean, I think all of us wanted it, but similar to last week when we did.
Yeah, I got the number 1 draft pick.
Yeah, we did a draft pick to see who gets the number 1 pick, and Keith won it this week. So he gets the golden goat over there. He gets Jordan Brooks, who is very clearly our MVP this year. Taylor, but you didn't get a bad choice either, my man.
No, I did not. And while Jordan Brooks was a fantastic player, and I agree with Josh, I think we should go ahead and re-up him, even though we might need to add some pieces to the linebacker room. We ended up getting a dang good pass rusher in Chop Robinson, I think, and I actually think this guy has the potential to be an elite pass rusher. I said a lot of my thoughts on this guy when we were talking about the edge rusher group, of how he gets to the quarterback, his pressure rate, the hurries, the sacks, while not overly impressive, is still promising considering what he really had to work with. And again, that missed tackle rate of 33%, like, he has room for improvement, and he is looking this good despite that. So you give him somebody opposite to work with, he's going to be a menace for years to come for this team.
Yeah, man, we have a lot of options. I think not a lot of options, but we have a lot of decisions to make on the defensive end. As everybody knows, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are pretty much both going to be in the conversation as to whether or not they stay or go. Phillips' contract is up, so like if we don't decide, there's nothing lost there. But we're going to talk more about that in the next couple episodes. Chop Robinson had an amazing season. Fantastic pick, Taylor.
Appreciate it.
Josh went with Calais Campbell, which you can't argue. Amazingly, Josh put in the chat before that Calais only played 47% of the snaps this year. You felt every single percentage of that 47% because he was an absolute monster.
That's a wild stat.
Right?
I seriously can't believe that. 47. Wow, dude.
It's crazy. 47%, less than half the snaps, and he made such an impact for us this year. Really would love to have him back if he decides to play another season. We're still not sure on that, but he had 52 tackles, 5 sacks, 12 tackles for a loss, and 5 pass deflections. He's on the defensive line. He had 5
Yeah, but he's a giant. He's a giant,
He's
Anthony. Like,
huge.
he's going to get his pass deflections.
He's huge. Boys, I had his buddy in the middle, Zach Sealer. Man, when we lost Christian Wilkins, I was sweating. All right, I didn't think we should pay that much for a defensive tackle, but I was really worried. Like, man, is Sealer going to be good enough to step in? And boy, was he. I mean, this guy had a monster year. He's going to get himself paid with this season. 55 tackles, 10 sacks, 13 tackles for a loss, 2 pass deflections, and somehow came up with an interception as well as a fumble recovery. I mean, he did a little bit of everything this year. I hope we pay him. I don't know if his contract is up. If it isn't, I hope we give him an extension anyways because he deserves it after
an extension. Anthony, they signed him to an extension last season.
Give him another one. Pay the man.
I think he's under contract for 2 more years with us.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we see one of those little, like, those things they do every once in a while where a guy gets a bonus that he wasn't supposed to get because he had such a good season. Yeah. 57% of snaps, Josh says. He's correcting himself there. But either way, it's amazing. Yeah. And Zach Sealer right there alongside of him. Those two in the middle made you forget who Christian Wilkins was because they played so well there in the middle of the defense. So, yeah. Our game balls for today, just to recap that, boys. And if you guys have a game ball, please throw it in the chat. We would love to hear who your game balls for the season are on the defensive side of the ball. If you have an offensive one, head on over to the offensive video that we did last week and give us your game balls there. So Taylor had Chop Robinson, Keith had Jordan Brooks, I had Zach Sealer, and Josh had Calais Campbell. Now we get to be a little bit negative, boys. We get to talk about the Jockstraps, who played so poorly this season that they deserve the dirtiest, stinkiest, smelliest jockstrap you can find in the men's locker room. And let me tell you, there's some stankers in there. Keith, I'm going to start with you again, buddy. Who did you give this award to?
Well, first I want to point out that because I got to pick first in the game ball segment, I got to pick last in the jockstrap segment. So there wasn't a lot of meat on the bone for me, but I went with Cam Smith because Cam Smith was a guy that we were looking towards to, provide some depth for the Dolphins this year. There were guys that we were looking at like Storm Duck and but Cam Smith was supposed to be our primary backup. He was supposed to be the next guy up after Kendall Fuller gets a concussion, or Jalen Ramsey didn't miss any time this year, but still there was room there for Cam Smith to kind of make a name for himself, and he didn't do it. He was either injured or he was getting cooked. He was getting fried on the field. I'm about done with the Cam Smith experience, and it's only been 2 years, but I've about had enough with this whole thing. It's time for us to kind of revamp this cornerback room. And I don't think Cam Smith should be a part of their future.
Yeah, I'm not too shocked if guys like Cam Smith and Channing Tindall aren't here next year. They've had some time to get productive. They haven't really done anything. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them go. That's a good call out, though. Cam Smith, Dolphins fans probably forget, but this was a guy who was a pretty high pick. We were pumped about it. We were like, yes, we got a corner.
He was our top pick 2 years ago. Like, we didn't have a first-round pick, so we took Cam Smith out of South Carolina. And coming into the league, he was a guy that had all the athletic traits. He can get a little bit handsy. He can get a little bit, gets a little bit too pass interference-y to make a verb out of that word. And, by and large, I don't know. We haven't really seen any of that play out because he hasn't been on the field. And there has to be a reason for that. And it's because he's probably not very good.
Yeah. Amazingly enough, just looking up his stats real quick, he had 16 tackles this year. I would have told you he had 0. I didn't even realize he played enough to get 16 tackles. Kind of crazy. But Cam Smith, man, hopefully if you do stay another year, you'll contribute more because our corner room could use it. We gave them a C, by the way, combined at the corner room. So we're not too happy with them.
Yeah, Cam Smith also, it's a thing where Channing Tindall, I think I could see him not being on the team next year. But that's also because of the linebacker room and probably what we'll end up doing with the edge room. The cornerback room, you're looking at, how much are you going to have to turn that over? Because we can't cut everybody and sign new like everybody at every position. Like some rooms have to come back somewhat intact. So I'm curious to see if corner might be one of those rooms that we're just going to sit there and go like, well, we drafted somebody, but Cam Smith is still here as a backup.
We seem to like to find undrafted guys, we have 3 of them on the roster.
Yeah.
Albeit one of them's a practice squad guy, and Nick Needham. But yeah, so Taylor, you went with the Dolphins backfield and defense. Who did you have for your jockstrap?
I ended up going with Javon Holland. We talked about it in the safety room segment. It's just a thing where he had prime opportunity to make so much money this year, and he just disappointed. Like purely, like not just in terms of himself, but just what this defense was set up for somebody like a Holland to get turnovers. And he just didn't do it. Like he just became another guy on the team at best. And that was very disappointing for somebody that we thought a few years ago was going to be the leader in this secondary for years to come.
Yeah. I mean, if we do decide to bring him back, probably at a discounted rate, hopefully he can recover and find what made him great in his first 2 years there. But man, what a down season for Jordan. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm going to cry.
Well, that's to Josh's point. Like maybe it is a thing where we can bring him back on a little bit cheaper of a deal. Like maybe a one and done prove it year deal, and we can get somebody opposite of him who's not Jordan Poyer. And let's really see. It's
going to be hard because the salary cap going up every year. Teams get spend happy in free agency. So I don't know if it'll happen, but I'm hopeful. Josh, of course, chose Jordan Poyer.
I'm shocked, Anthony. I am
shocking revelation right here. Nobody saw it coming. So that leaves me, guys. That's left. I had the second to last pick in this round. It was very difficult. I think there was 2 easy.
You guys were struggling
for jockstrap. Yeah,
it was a struggle.
Holland and Poyer were the easy picks, right? And then everybody else, I'm like, nobody played poorly enough for a jockstrap. So I went with a guy who ended up getting cut, and that's David Long Jr. Listen, we brought in Jordan Brooks, and Anthony Walker was supposed to be a backup. We brought in Jordan Brooks to play alongside David Long Jr. We'd have Anthony Walker there to kind of rotate in, which they did fairly well for the first few games of the year. But David Long just fell off quickly. Mentioned a lot of it in the previous segment, but was missing tackles left and right, was getting pushed away from the hole. I can't believe how many times I watched this guy. He was trying to fill the gap, and it's just tight end, fullback, whatever, just comes up and just slides him away. It's like, you don't need to be here, bud. Don't worry about it. Bad year for David Long, and he gets cut, and then he ends up going to the Lions for a game or 2 while Anzalone came back from injury, gets cut there, and ends up with the Titans. And I don't truly know if they cut him or not, but I imagine they did because it just didn't seem like he had much left. So
yeah,
David Long Jr., although he's not on the team at the end of the season, he did play a fair few games for us this year, so he gets my jockstrap. If you guys disagree with us, or if you have jockstraps of your own, please put them down in the comments below. We would love to see who you thought was just so terrible this year that they deserve this dirty, smelly jockstrap.
Yeah, and Josh taking Poyer was not unexpected, by the way. No. And honestly, if any of us had the first pick in the jockstraps, we would have taken Poyer. It was that bad.
Yeah,
it was that
absolutely
bad. So I guess we're going to move on to the next segment here, Anthony.
Yeah, so I get the honor of taking over Josh's segment today because he's out.
Why do you say honor like that?
Well, why not?
Is it a little tongue-in-cheek, I think?
No. Truthful for sure. This is one of the most fun segments, and it's one of our best performing YouTube videos because people love to see themselves on the screen. So this is Takes from the Deep End. This is where we get to take a look at what you guys are saying and react to it.
Takes from the Deep End.
I just love the music in those. I could just keep playing it over and over again. So So Josh has given us quite a few takes from the deep end to think about here. So I have picked out some that I would like to get some reactions. There's only 2 of you and then 1 of me. I think we can all probably just give a little, bit of a reaction to each one here. First one I'm going to show is one that we wanted to get to last week. We didn't get to last week, so we're definitely doing it today. Let's go. Hypothetically, we let Mike McDaniel go in the middle of next season, and Pittsburgh says that Tomlin is available for a future one. Do you make that deal, Taylor? A first-round pick for Mike Tomlin.
Yes, every day of the week, twice on Sunday. This is one of the best coaches of all time. I understand Pittsburgh fans are tired of it. I get it. Sometimes there's that Andy Reid thing of like, you just run your course in a place.
Mm-hmm.
Same time with Andy Reid in Philly. Honestly, I think Pete Carroll was like that in Seattle.
Yeah,
as well. And so I know Pittsburgh fan feels like that's where Tomlin is right now, and I'm at the point where I agree. But he still is one of the greatest coaches of all time, in my opinion, and I would love to have him on this team.
Keith, what do you think?
My thoughts exactly with Taylor. I'm lockstep with him. Yes, 1,000,000 times yes. Please, let's do it.
Yeah, I can't believe it, guys, but I got to agree. A first-round pick's a lot, all right? We shouldn't say it so casually, like it's almost nothing. But
we gave one up for Bradley Chubb. All right, we traded up for Deion Jordan. First-round picks mean nothing.
That's true. That's so true. I gotta say, I mean, I get it too, Taylor. I get that Pittsburgh fans are frustrated with Tomlin and yada, yada, yada. Who cares if it's a winning season if we don't win a playoff game? Come be a Dolphins fan. Just do it for a year. Please.
For a year. No, walk in my shoes for 5 minutes, honestly.
I mean, trust me, there are like 26 other teams that would take Tomlin in a second. Their fan bases especially. Yeah, so first-round pick for Mike Tomlin. Sign me up, boys. Sign me up. All right, so this one's pretty fresh here. The way the Ravens and Bills play show that Miami is at least 3 years away from fixing the team and putting a consistent winner on the field. Keith, what do you think about that? Bills and Ravens had another just absolute slobber knocker here in the divisional round. Really good teams, really good quarterbacks. Do you agree with this statement that Miami has 3 more years to build something?
I agree that when you look at the Dolphins play and then you look at the Ravens and Bills play, the Dolphins are very far behind them. There's no denying that. But honestly, and I'm going to sound like a broken record here, guys, but you fix this offensive line, the Dolphins are contenders. Period. That's it. We're talking about two teams in the Ravens and the Bills that run the ball exceptionally well. They protect their quarterbacks. They allow plays to develop for their quarterbacks, for their offenses, and they both have really good offensive lines. They've both invested a lot of draft capital and free agent capital in their offensive lines. The Dolphins do the same. The Dolphins can be where they are. I think the Dolphins, especially offensively, like you put an offensive line in front of Tua this season with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and I understand Tyreek Hill may not be there next year, yada, yada, but you put an offensive line on the Dolphins this year, you take the Bills offensive line, you put it on the Dolphins this year, the Dolphins are contenders as well. I guarantee it.
We're running 200 yards a game.
Yeah.
Taylor, do you agree?
Put an offensive line in front of Devon Achane. He's going to run for 200 yards a game too.
Yeah. 2 things for what Keith said here. First off, when you're like, I sound like a broken record, you just look down in pure, like, you were defeated, and I can't blame you. The second thing, I agree with you about the Bills and Ravens. They invest in the offensive line. Just to, add a little bit of, what this year has been, Baltimore probably does they're in the middle of retooling their offensive line. They probably still need some help in the interior. But the Bills especially, like, they have been doing nothing but getting the massive dudes on that line.
Yep.
And let's go with Josh Allen. So both of them, like, your general point stands no matter what. Like, there are 2 teams that invest in the position. That's what I agree with 100%. And yeah, it can be done sooner than 3 years. Look at the Commies. The Commanders are in the NFC title game right now.
1 year.
They had number 2 pick last year.
They won 4 games last year, yeah.
Yeah. And Jaden Daniels he's the number one reason, don't get me wrong, but that team is good.
Yeah.
They are a good football team. They are well coached, and they put this roster together very well.
I have to say, I agree with the overall sentiment of the statement as well. I do believe that we're far behind the Ravens and the Bills, and I don't think it's just the offensive line, though. I think it's attitude. If you look at these two teams, they have stars who are there to win. Their star players are dedicated to winning, not dedicated to fame or whatever you want to call it. Derrick Henry is one of the nicest guys. You watch his interviews, this dude is just so classy, right? Lamar Jackson, love him or hate him. I know a lot of people don't like him because he doesn't speak the most proper or whatever it is, but the dude never says anything mean. He never says anything bad. He's just a classy guy. If you look at the Bills, it's the same thing, right? Josh Allen is really well put together. He's a strong guy. He's just dedicated to his team. James Cook, dedicated to his team. They had a guy, Stephon Diggs, who wasn't so dedicated to the team. So what they do? They shipped him off to Houston, right? Like, I think we need an attitude adjustment on this team just as much as we need an offensive line if we're going to see any sort of success.
And that's why, not to huff on some copium here from that press conference, but why I'm very interested in this offseason for Greer and McDaniel, because you hear the way they talked. It was like a come to Jesus kind of moment for them, where it's like, okay, did y'all get it here? Because I get that you want these star players, but if they don't want to be here, if they're not here to win, then
here's my problem with that. Here's my problem with that. The players are gone, right? He's not saying this in front of the players. They're in the offseason already.
Yeah.
When it comes time to say it to their face, then I'll believe it.
You got to be able to practice what you preach. Like, that's the thing. Like, and that's going to be the main thing for McDaniel. That's going to prove whether he's going to be the Dolphins coach for the next 5 years, or maybe not the rest of the next season.
Hey, what are the Bills for? Get out of here. I was answering the question, Josh. All right, guys. So let's go. Let's do one more. I found a positive in here. Let me find it. Here we go. Don't be shocked. This is a positive one for the Dolphins.
From a Dolphins fan?
Yeah. Okay. Herbert and Love wildcard weekend combined stats 34 of 65, 454 yards, 1 touchdown, 7 interceptions, and they were sacked 7 times. But yeah, we made the wrong choice drafting Tua. Taylor, what do you think?
Man, I think we put too much stock in these quarterbacks, especially in terms of the play. Like, it's always about how do they do in this one playoff game, and if not, they completely suck. We need to go and retool. And a lot of time, you just got to go, okay, fine, let's get a new quarterback. Let's go back in the quarterback carousel. Who are we getting? Like, what is your answer?
We're going to talk about that a lot next week, I have a feeling.
What is your answer here? And if you're telling me your answer, as much as I like Kyle McCord out of Syracuse, if your answer is to draft Kyle McCord in like the 4th round and he starts next year, what?
Yeah, 4th round quarterbacks always do well in the NFL. Don't you know?
Base the entire franchise on a late round quarterback. Like, I don't see it, man. I think we put too much stock in these quarterbacks. I'm not saying like, ignore the fact that Herbert played bad or Hurts played bad and they somehow still won. It's just that it's a team game. And there's many reasons why these teams win and lose. A lot of times it is due to quarterback play, but it's not the end all be all.
Keith, what do you think?
Well, right, wrong, and different, or whether you like it or not, Justin Herbert and Tua are always going to be linked.
Yeah.
Because the Dolphins chose Tua instead of Justin Herbert. Brian Flores wanted Justin Herbert. The Dolphins wanted Tua Tagovailoa. So right, wrong, or indifferent, those two guys are always going to be compared to one another. Jordan Love, in the same respect, he was drafted in the same draft class, so he'll always be a part of that as well. So neither of those guys played well. They both went up against top 5 defenses. So just to be fair about this, they both went up against top 5 defenses and lost. Justin Herbert looked bad. Justin Herbert choked. That was a choke job by Justin Herbert. Jordan Love, not so much. He lost 2 of his top wide receivers in the first half of that game.
And he was already missing one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So,
That's
let's
a
put this
GM
in the
problem
context
right there.
here. Let's put this in the context here. Tua's gonna. I don't think we made the wrong choice drafting Tua. I would still draft Tua. All these years later, in spite of all the injuries, I think Tua has potential to be a better quarterback than both of those guys. But that being said, be fair to these guys. Justin Herbert went up against a top 5 defense, top 5 pass rush, and Jordan Love was just kind of behind the 8 ball to begin with. He went up against the top defense in the NFL without 2 of his top wide receivers.
Yeah, and I'd even mention Jordan Love. Like that's a thing where, again, the context does matter into things because you look at his receiving core, what he has to work with. Again, not excusing it. He played bad, and he has things to work on next year. He had a big interception problem this season. He was very streaky with it. He's got to get better at that.
Which we
But
saw
at
the
the same
beginning of
time-
last year too, before he got it together in the second half of last year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But at the same time, it's
maybe
a
that's
team
who he
game.
is.
Yeah.
Like they had problems that it wasn't just Jordan Love the reason the Packers lost. It wasn't just Justin Herbert's fault the reason the Chargers lost. Like there was many reasons why. And I feel like in the playoffs, while we do sometimes crap on quarterbacks for their poor play, sometimes feel like we should be also crapping on the wide receiver court or the defense, and they kind of get the pass for it.
Yeah,
Listen,
but there's a reason why Tom Brady's the GOAT.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, that's true too.
I'll agree with you guys that like it's a team game, but the quarterback gets the glory, the quarterback gets the not glory, right? They get the downfall as well. And Justin Herbert played poorly, but it makes me laugh that these are two that are compared to and Herbert compared all the time because neither one of them has won a freaking playoff game, right? You guys can put up all the fancy stats you want in the regular season, which they both have had really good regular season like statistics, but neither one of them has won. So like, okay, do we want to have this argument between our two loser quarterbacks, or like, what's the point here? It's crazy. Yeah. Listen. That's it for Takes from the Deep End this week, guys. If you have any hot takes that you want to put in the chat, you may appear on the next episode of the Fins Forecast. Thank you so much for everybody who participated this time, and we'll have more for you next week.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, we're getting up to the hour and a half mark here, guys. It's probably time for us to call it for the night. We will be back next week, next Wednesday, and we're going to be talking about the future of our offense, what we want our offense to look like moving forward. It's going to be a great show. And again, we're going to talk about the future of the defense. We're going to be talking about the draft and free agency. And there's so much content. This is a giant pinata that we're going to be whacking at all off season. Just content coming out all over the place.
We have up till April 30th planned already. So we're coming at you boys.
Yeah. Yeah. And that includes a live draft show. We're going to be going live during the draft, spending all night first round with you guys. So look, this is going to be a fun off season. It's going to be an awesome off season. We're going to have Josh back next week. 4 of us are going to be back together again. And yeah, so I'm going to go into final thoughts here. Taylor, do you have any final thoughts for the night?
I guess final thoughts is this was an episode predicated on the defense, and as I said earlier, I think defense is promising, and I can't wait to see what this defense looks like next year. As long as Anthony Weaver comes back, we could be talking about a completely different subject next week if the Saints decide to roll with him.
Yeah. Anthony, any final thoughts?
I just want to give, this got me thinking about our boy Xavier Howard, number 25 there. He never got picked up this season, so I want to give a shout out to Xavier Howard. It's probably the end of his football career. He was an all-time great Miami Dolphin. He had his run-ins with the law and some stuff on the side. So the man himself may not have been fantastic. Yeah.
What are you? You know what? That's probably from off air.
Listen, the man himself may not have been fantastic, but the player was amazing for us for a long time. So shout out to Xavier Howard.
I love it. I love Xavier Howard. I was surprised he didn't get at least a sniff this season. But hey,
not for long.
Something's happened for a reason. So look, guys, for myself, for Josh, for Anthony, for Taylor, we're gonna be back next week with another great show for you. Next Wednesday at 7:00. If you haven't done it already, please like and subscribe. Leave comments for us. We will answer them. And we will see you next week. Have a good